As fantastic a CFP as Mel O is, as wonderful an attorney as I am, and as good as Stormy is at whatever it is he does, please do note that anything said in our podcasts are our opinions alone and are not meant to be taken as financial or legal advice.
Welcome to Finances, the Other F Word, a Gen Xer podcast for musicians and music lovers, where we discuss money and music without all the pretentious bullshit. Here are your hosts, Zoe Terry, attorney at large, Stormy Andrews, founder of Yokel Local Marketing, and Mel O, certified financial planner and author of Finances, the Other F Word. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome to Finances, the Other F Word. This is a special podcast. You've probably heard in our previous podcast, we were talking a lot about music festivals and those types of things. And we specifically left out Route 91 Festival due to the obviously somber event and the way that it actually hit us in Vegas. And I thought that it should have and does deserve its own kind of standalone podcast. And it was a pretty tragic event, and Stormy has some actual facts on it. And then we're just going to talk a little bit about what it was like to be in Vegas during that, because it was kind of surreal. So if you want to take it from here, Stormy.
Sure. Yeah, it was something. So in that particular event, over a 10-minute span from 10:05 p.m. to 10:15 p.m., the shooter from the Mandalay Bay shot across into the venue, which resulted in the killing of 58 people. 1,100 rounds were shot, and that also resulted in 851 people injured. And of that 851 people, 400 were injured by bullets. To this day, it's the deadliest mass shooting in the U.S. by a single perpetrator. That was the Route 91 Festival, which happened here in Las Vegas, October 1st, 2017.
So what tell me your story about your how you heard about the Route 91 festival and the impact and stories around when you experienced it.
It was surreal. I was actually at home that evening in my backyard, just sitting there watching TV, and it was a beautiful night. And then all of a sudden my phone's blowing up. Are you okay? Are you okay? Is everyone okay? And I had no idea what anyone was talking about. I'm a cord cutter, so the TV I had in the backyard was Netflix. So there wasn't local TV breaking in to tell us, what was happening. I was watching a movie. And when I checked into it, after my 30th or 40th, message of checking in, people checking in with me to see if I was okay, I was blown away. It was, it's hard to imagine that something like that happened here in Vegas. And the Mandalay Bay, of all the casinos that I visit in Las Vegas, that's been the one I probably visited most often. It's one of the closest to my home. I would imagine it's maybe 5 or 6 miles away, so it's not that far away. Maybe 10 miles, 5 to 10 miles. It's not that far away. And it was, it was surreal. My wife, she works for a school here in town. She's an educator, and one of her teachers was at the venue. And, that teacher, one of the people that was injured, not by gunfire, but she shared a story with us to where someone pushed her. And when she got pushed, the person directly behind her got shot.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is pretty crazy. So, I can't imagine anyone that lives in Las Vegas wasn't affected by this. Another client of ours, his sister-in-law was killed, from the event. And I just can't imagine anyone that lives in Las Vegas was not affected by this, meaning that they don't. I believe that everyone knows someone, or they know someone who knows someone that was affected by this terrible tragedy. Yeah. That's me.
What's your story, Zoe?
Similar in that I was at home in bed, and we were watching something else, and then likewise, my phone started going from family in England with the time difference. It would have been early morning there, and it was family concerned for us, and we had no idea what was going on, and so we switched onto the news and just watched it unfold, and were just absolutely just traumatized by the whole thing. For us, I think the biggest biggest thing for us was that my stepdaughter, my husband's daughter, is a huge country fan, and she would have been there, but she was away at college. And one of her best friends was there with her mother. Thankfully, they were both physically okay, but the thought that she would have been there was just terrifying to us. And then, a little bit more removed, I had a client who was there, and her boyfriend was killed. And as Stormy said, I think we all know someone, or know someone who knows someone who was there, or was, injured or killed or affected in some way. And it was just the worst thing to watch unfold. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And it was just devastating. And for us as a family, we were just so relieved that our daughter wasn't there.
Yeah, my story is similar. I actually have a couple things wrapped around the Route 91 festival. First of all, I had a friend, him and his fiance were there. They both made it out okay without a scratch. I mean, of course, I'm sure that they have some kind of leftover, trauma from it. But as far as physically coming out, they were okay. I was at an event, and I believe October 1st, 2017, if I remember correctly, was a Monday. Am I correct?
Sunday.
Or was that the Sunday?
It was Sunday.
Yeah, I believe it was Sunday.
Yeah, I was at some kind of event, networking for work or something, but I was kind of toasty. And I came home, and my friend said, "Hey, did you hear about the shooting at the festival?" And I said no. And her friend was a firefighter, was one of the first responders, and she says they have confirmed 20 dead. This was the night of the actual shooting, and the news was still reporting that there's only 2 dead. They were saying 2 dead, and her friend said we have confirmed 20 dead. So I'm looking at the news, and I'm seeing 2 dead, and I'm hearing 20 dead, confirmed. And on the same day that happened, Tom Petty had a massive heart attack. He had been trying to finish up his tour, and he was taking all these painkillers for his hip, and he had a massive heart attack, and they declared him dead. Then they said he wasn't dead, and so it was all October 1st was just a shitty day. And then, of course, what ended up happening was, like, my phone started blowing up. We obviously have great loved ones and friends, because my phone was blowing up from all of my Washington friends. "Hey, Mel, we know you don't like country music, but we know you go to a lot of shows. Are you okay? Are you okay?" Facebook, I'm just from everywhere, and I'm good, I'm good, and all this stuff. And the thing, I had a pit boss. You mentioned Mandalay Bay. I have a client who's a pit boss at Mandalay Bay, and he was working that night. And he said all of a sudden, SWAT shows up and busts in the doors of Mandalay Bay. And of course, the people that, ended up getting the shooter goes upstairs. But they took everybody and they swept the entire floor. And everybody who's on machines, everybody who's on blackjack, if you had money down, chips, they didn't fucking care. They're like, "You're going." And they swept the whole floor, and they pushed everybody down into the employee dining room. And they sat there till 7 o'clock. And, I'm not a conspiracy theorist person, but at the time, it was told to me by the people who were first responders that was there was also shooters down at, I believe it is Bellagio or Mirage.
All right, they thought shooters were all over the place.
Right, and that there had been some issue, but I don't know the validity of that, because if that was the case, there was a ton of people in those casinos. You think that, they would have had more exposure to it. And then, of course, I work volunteering with veterans, and I have a lot of friends that are still within, like, the secret squirrel kind of stuff, who know way better than me. And they say that the guy that got shot was a scapegoat. I don't know about any of that. But they swept everybody off the floor, and he had to sit down there with patrons and employees until 7 o'clock before they actually let them go. And I was so pissed off because, you know, when you go to a festival, regardless of the type of music it is, you're there and you're free in that moment, you know? In that moment, you're happy and you're singing songs and you're just so excited, and the band you've been waiting for to see all night is on the stage, and have something like that happen. And what I ended up doing, not realizing it, was about a week and a half after, I was trying to get to the other side of the Strip. So for those of you who don't know the Vegas geography, the Strip divides the valley into east and west. And so I was coming from the south and I was trying to get to the east, and the traffic was backed up. And so I averted off Russell to take the back way down the Strip to hit Tropicana and go up, not realizing that I was literally going to drive by the scene. And the minute I saw it, it reminded me, I had the unfortunate thing of booking a trip down to Las Vegas the week after 9/11. Now, at the time, I didn't know that was going to happen, obviously.
You said a trip to Las Vegas?
Las Vegas after 9/11 in 2001. I was living in Washington State.
In Washington, and you booked to Las Vegas.
Right,
okay.
and I wanted to move down to Vegas, so I had booked a trip the week after 9/11 to come down here and look for work. And 9/11 happened, and everybody just vacated Vegas because obviously we're a big tourist destination. We have a lot of, you know, if you don't like money and capitalism, Vegas is kind of your spot. I mean, besides, I guess, the Twin Towers. And I got off the plane, and there was a guy in full fatigues holding an assault rifle when I got off the plane. And it was just surreal. And I understood, but I had already booked the hotel. I had already booked the trip. And I walked up and down the Strip for 4 days. Every HR department was closed. Closed. Not, hey, we're not taking applications. No, fuck it, we're closed. And the Strip was the most vacant I've ever seen it. And what had happened is, now when you go to New York, if you go around that corner, they have like plaques and they have T-shirts and they have that kind of stuff, and they've made it all clean. But when I came down here, literally the week after 9/11, people came down, and there was letters from people from Britain. I remember that somebody had written, like, you know, something, you know, from your friends across the pond and this other thing. And there was people crying, and some people went there, you know, because New York has the skyline of New York. And just flowers and T-shirts and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, the Strip was still kind of busy, but when you hit that corner, it was this deadening silence. And it was the surrealist thing. And you could not walk by there and not stop and pray if you're a praying person, and reflect on all the lives that were lost on 9/11. So as soon as I get off Russell and I hit Las Vegas Boulevard trying to skip to Tropicana, I'm like, fuck, I'm right by Route 91. And you could see the windows broken out in Mandalay still. They hadn't replaced them yet, you know, where he shot from. And, you know, they were kind of like, you know, padded up, and I don't even know if they're going to rent that room again. I mean, I don't know who would want to stay in that room. And it was all police, you know, police line don't cross, but everybody's shit was still there. So tables with merchandise, you know, from the concert there, people's purses there, like from, you could see by the strewn artifacts and, you know, just the articles and the merchant tables left, you could see that people had just fled in all directions, dropping shit, getting trampled, leaving their stuff. And this is a week and a half, you know, maybe even 2 weeks after it. I think they actually ended up having it closed almost a month. And again, you had notes and you had outpourings of, you know, grieving of, hey, you know, we're, you know, just people just mourning, maybe people they knew or people they lost or whatever the case is. But they locked the whole thing down, and it stayed like that. So a lot of the merchants that were smaller that had merchandise and things for the concerts, they went out of business because they couldn't get any of their supplies. They couldn't get anything until everything was done. And then, of course, like you said, it was 58? 58 that ended up passing. And it just broke my heart. And the worst part of all of this is that I sincerely believe that there's people out there that will probably never go to an outdoor festival again. Specifically, you know, we have Life is Beautiful, which is in the middle of downtown, which if you're going to, you know, talk about being closed in, kind of like how Mandalay Bay was right across from the lot where Route 91 was going on. I mean, it's a concern, and people are, not wanting to go to these festivals. And I think that that's the biggest thing that was robbed from us. For speaking for myself, I know that I will still continue to go to rock festivals, outdoor or not outdoor. I mean, if I do have to go, that'd be heaven for me to go at a rock concert. But it was just a really sad affair. And I just wanted to give people out there some perspective of what it was like to actually be in Vegas. And I remember October 2nd, Tom Petty was brain dead. October 1st. October 2nd, his family pulled the plug. He officially died. October 2nd, we started getting real numbers. Not like, oh, we think it's 2, we think it's 20. No, real shit started rolling in. And I remember not being a very emotional person, that I'm not. I remember sitting out by my fire pit with a glass of whiskey, bawling, grieving, bawling for my city, bawling for everybody who had lost their lives, people who had came into Vegas, to just have a great time and do a little gambling and just hear music they loved. And it was just a really sad day. And I wanted you guys to hear the perspective from our viewpoint. And, thank you to everybody who followed up with Stormy and Zoe and I to make sure that we were okay. And, just give it its own special episode, because the people who passed away sincerely deserve it. And I'm glad that fucking guy is dead. So that's really all I have to say about that. Do you guys have anything to add?
I've got nothing to add. Zoe?
No, other than it is a cliche, but it did show you how much of a community we are. Although everyone says we're such a transient city, we came together so remarkably well after this.
Yeah, we sure did.
And Mandalay Bay's profits suffered greatly because people didn't want to go there and didn't want to go to the casino because this asshole shot up people, that somehow it reflected on Mandalay Bay. And, we talked about in previous episodes about all of the insurance that's needed when you do any type of festivals. And no doubt that is what, became of all the lawsuits. And I can't remember who put on Route 91, but the company and Mandalay Bay basically had to distance themselves and say, hey, it was, we're really sorry that people got shot, but it's not our fault. And they had to do that because now, of course, all these class actions are going in, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out as it progresses through the court system, which Zoe would understand way better than me, but because that is going to have a direct effect against your Rock and Rios. Rock and Rio was here at the parking lot right across from the SLS. And they were supposed to come back in 2017. They didn't, because I think the turnout in 2015 wasn't what they expected. And I'm really curious to see as far as the liability effect that the concert's going to have. So anyway, if you have any thoughts on Route 91, or if you knew anyone that maybe passed away there and you would like to, give a little, is it a memoriam on them, you can feel free to post that on our social media sites. And we're sorry for your loss, and we appreciate you listening. And next time we'll talk to you with a more cheerier podcast. Until then, we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you like the show, please rate and review us and tell your friends.